Live is what we are for an extremely special edition of the following conversation is scheduled for one fall. You've heard the term on the Independence TV ready. You've heard terms such as, why isn't this gentleman signed to a contract? You've heard things such as, from my own mouth, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. I'm joined by someone who is in fact all of those things and more. I'm talking in fact with someone who's a true belt collector, a true unsung hero of not just the Northeast Independents, but the independents across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the following conversation is scheduled for one fall in this Ric Flair versus Bobby Eaton edition of the program. I am joined by wrestling's richest prize, Darius Carter. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here. A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It was a matter of time before this happened. Might as well nip this in the bud and get it out the way.
I'm so thrilled to have you. You know, it means the world to me. It's no secret. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for you. We've known each other a long time now. Hit it off almost immediately. In recent years, you know, run up a bar tab or two, and we'll get into that stuff.
Or six or a dozen.
Or six or a dozen. Usually, you know, because I know, and this blew my mind because then it was like trivia. You know, usually with the program, because you've seen the show, you've heard, you've listened. You know, we start with the journey, with the training, and kind of leading into it. I want to take a different approach for how we're going to start this program, specifically with, you know, with you. Where are you at right now with independent wrestling? Because it's cliche, but for me, it's a fact. You are doing your absolute best work. Anywhere you get put on the card, you are completely unhinged. And if it's not in a main event position, you are further unhinged to be like, oh, I'm going to walk out here with something. I'm from around the way. You know, like, so where are you right now with pro wrestling?
Happiest I've ever been, the best it's ever been, seeing the most success, having the best matches, the quality of opponents. And I had just made a post about this. I said that my summer, in terms of match quality, is the best that I've had in my career so far. You know, I have Darius coming up in July. I have so many great things, and it's all from hard work. It's all consistency. It's just putting your head down, grinding, and doing the things that you need to do. You know, showing up for your matches, and I don't mean just physically being there, but I mean mentally being there. Showing up for that, doing your promos before and after the events, always being one of the last people to leave, no matter what. You keep doing this consistently. You do the right things, and it does come to you. It may take longer. It could take. It could take years and years longer, but doing the right thing consistently, the quality of life is there. And I've learned so much from that, the experience I've accrued from that. Time has made me better than anything else. Experience has been the greatest ally that I've ever had. Learning and standing and falling and standing again and standing taller and standing higher. And it's been a beautiful career. And right now, again, I have some of the best matches of my life coming up. I have Darius. I have Lee Moriarty coming up. I have Christopher Daniels coming up. And I know we're going to get into all these things, but this is all within a few months. I mean, this is literally coming up. This isn't, next year or October, December, January. I'm talking about July, August, rolling into September. They're coming up fast. So this is what I want. I want this quality all the time. I want this every weekend. I want this as often as possible. That's where I'm at. It couldn't be better.
I think the word shout out to John Blaine who's tuning in. I think the word that echoes the most in what you just said is consistency, right? And let's say there's consistency, there's habit, there's repetitiveness, all in the same vein, meaning different things. But your consistency, Darius, really is at another level. And for you to say that you're having quite the summer coming up with all those opponents, I got to call a fair amount of your matches last summer, and from then to now, because I was part of that ride, even that has excelled. How much of that consistency is within you versus what promotions bless you with and the opponents you get to be across the ring with?
Oh, that's definitely from me. And listen, a booking too, you get put in positions, but that's because you work to get in those positions. That's because they know what they're going to get with me. They know when you have Darius Carter on the card, when you have him on your event, you know what he's there to do. I always figured that's what a promoter would want in a wrestler, something that's easy to plug in, something that's easy to fit and play and fit and go. That's what I am. You know what you can do with me. Main event, if that's where you put me, that's where you put me. But I'm going to come in and deliver a main event match, whether I'm first, whether I'm first after an admission, whether I'm last before the first half main event. It doesn't matter of position of the card. You know, I could be match 3 against Richard Holiday at ISPW. I mean, the mission remains the same. And that mindset, again, of delivering in the ring, of delivering your promos, of having a story, having something that people can follow and relate to, making sure I have that everywhere I go so that you see so many different shades of Darius Carter, so many different angles of this man, this being.
Right.
That to me is the lifeblood of this. That's what keeps it going. That's the consistency.
And you may have just answered the next question, but it's a follow-up from that answer. That's a personal choice that you've made. If whether you're on first, last, third, or in between, I'm going to still give you that 10 out of 10 performance because we know people and they're friends. I'm on third. I'm going to take it easy. But
it's all over the place.
That gear of yours, it's only got a certain level and it's top notch, right?
That's how I feel. I mean, that's what I'm there to do. I'm there to be remembered. I'm there for you to say, that person, that guy, I remember him. I have to see him again. I have to find out where he is. I have to find his social media. It's the most popular question is, oh, what's your social media? Where are you at? People find you. I make myself very easy to find, Mr. Darius Carter. Very, very easy to find.
And here's the thing: you talked about the summer you had, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'll give you some eye contact here. You talk about the summer you had coming up, and then let's take a look at last year. Just some victories. Defeats Danny Storm at Warriors, right? Okay. You also have this banger 3-way at Warriors against Joe Acastio and Steve Savage. One of the best matches I called last year, you and Marcus Mathers. I put that against anything.
I was just thinking of that match earlier today.
If you have not seen Darius Carter versus Marcus Mathers, whether it's title match, YouTube, wherever, make it your business to watch it. It easily can take on whatever your match of the year candidate is for this year, Carter and Mathers. So it was it's a good match when they give the commentators a workout. That's what I'm saying. You and Marcus Mathers, of course, when you took on TJ Marconi, which we're going to get into a little bit later on, in August, also part of WoW, when you took on George South at We Are Wrestling under Pete Rosado's banner. Let's not forget that you took on Colby Carino for an NWA championship.
Junior Heavyweight Championship on pay-per-view.
On pay-per-view, okay. And then, of course, when you defeated Joey Ace to get back Big Red, okay, to kind of cap off the summer. And you're talking about Delirious and many other names for this coming summer. So that's pretty wild. Carter, how many years now have you been wrestling officially?
It's coming on 15 now.
15 is a good number. It's kind of a cliche reference, but Larry Zbyszko made this really great analogy years ago that wrestlers are like these Jedi masters. Right when they're hitting more of their tenure is when they're getting very, very good at it. And you've been pretty blessed on the independents, as far as I know, injury free.
You said pretty blessed?
You've been pretty blessed. You've been injury free for those 15.
Oh, right? Injury free. Never once. Knock on wood. Whistle in the sky. Never been injured. Just being smart.
injury free in those 15 years. Around year 4 or 5, you're already getting a lot of notice, a lot of burn. You're working with a lot of top names and things like that.
2013, 14, yeah.
What do you think was like the breakout year? We could argue if it. I mean, you are established. It's no question about it. But what year do you feel like, okay, I'm good at this, and now people are starting to notice?
I think 2014 was that discovery year for myself, and then 2015 was where it started to come to fruition. So I had the benefit of starting with BWO, and they're more traditional, very traditional school back in 2008, back in the end of 2008.
And for those who don't know, without BWO, we don't have Pro Wrestling Magic, and we're gonna have Steve off on the program in a couple weeks, and we're definitely gonna talk BWO.
Right. You talk about the tree of life, like BWO. So many branches come from BWO.
Sure.
That are still existing now, even if BWO is defunct today. But so to have that, and then to enter the Beyond Wrestling stratosphere, end of 2009, circa 2010. I mean, you're wrestling.
Are you at Beyond during a lot of those hush hush shows when that was before it was even a mainstream term?
It's even before that. I mean, we're talking like. So the thing about Beyond was that Beyond had footage that was being released and put out there for you to be able to see. I mean, this was on YouTube before there was the YouTube phenomenon, before there was this social media phenomenon, I should say.
Yeah.
YouTube kickoff, like Beyond was there.
That's right.
So, and we're talking about quality, especially at the time. I mean, it still holds up now, but you weren't getting quality professional wrestling on the independent level for free the way that you were getting with Beyond. I mean, the best wrestlers from around the world were coming.
It's true, especially in that golden era, because at that time, no one, I don't think, understood YouTube. We were still very much in a cable. We were still learning the internet, first of all.
Right.
Say what you will, but we were still learning that. And just to kind of harp on your point with YouTube, the only places that were giving CZW was doing highlights and top tens, and it was being bootlegged, but it wasn't capitalizing.
They weren't releasing whole matches.
It was Beyond, and then Ace was doing Overdrive, but it was 30 minutes instead of an hour. And you were getting some quality, but Beyond was a little bit upper tier at the time because Mike wasn't ready. He'll tell you this himself. He wasn't ready to explore YouTube for Ace because they were making so much money on the DVDs back then. But Beyond was out there killing that platform, which was a genius strategy. So yes.
So I was out there, going to Elyria, Ohio, Sandusky, Ohio. We were traveling, 12, 13, however many hours, and doing those events with some of the best wrestlers on the independents at the time. You had the Chris Heroes and Claudio's coming through, and and even others were talking about like Davey Vega and Johnny Cockstrong at the time, Jefferson Saint. Who helped kind of set the path for me, and I'll always give him his just due for that.
I haven't heard that in a while, that name.
Yeah, Beyond gave me a quality of match that I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else. It was just different. And getting that so early taught me so much early on. Even if I wasn't ready for those lessons, at the time, I was still getting them. So I was growing into not just myself, because I was always aware of who I was, but I was growing into my identity as a performer, as Darius Carter, and expanding upon it. Everything you see from me has been evolutionary. I've never jumped from one thing to another. My persona, it started from, Debonair Millionaire and Young Money, Darius Carter, kind of flashing around to evolving into the mature, established, refined state of a man that is Darius Carter today. So it's been evolutionary. And that's one thing I always wanted with myself. I loved the personas that evolved, that didn't jump and you say, oh, that didn't make sense. Why'd they do that? But someone who made decisions throughout their years that showed the evolution of a persona. That to me is the best type of wrestler to follow. So I always wanted to be that. So I feel like I'm doing that on that level. I
And
take pride.
it's funny you say that because those are the characters that we resonate with the most, where it's as an extension of that person, turn up to 11. You've heard all these terms. A lot of that is you, right? When you hit that curtain, a lot of that is you turn up to like 50. And there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of that is, it's not an act. I'm just pulling the veil off a little bit.
It's big. It's big. And the thing is you look at terms, right? And if you use terms correctly, then you get the most out of them. And you see the term stadium act, right?
Yeah.
I see myself as and Darius Carter as a larger than life type of thing. I see that as a very large thing to cast, and it leaves a big shadow to cast. But that type of presentation, you have to commit to that. You have to be dedicated to that. If you are off or you're not there with every beat, people can see it. People are watching.
You can't be that on Friday and then not do that on Saturday. Yeah.
Right. And that's what people don't understand. When you raise the bar and you set a standard, you have to commit to that. You can't just do it once or twice or a few times. You have to do it every single time. For me, I can't ever fail. I always look at it like that. No matter where I am, no matter who I'm wrestling, no matter the level of opponent, I can't ever come in with an F on my report card because that'll bring my A to like a C or to like a D. That one F.
Drops out the average.
Right. That one F will affect me differently than other people who can fail and get passes because they, again, have a team that's supporting them, that's carting them like holding a sedan for them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have that. So I know that I have to deliver consistent quality and at an upswing. Everything I do at an upswing, always getting better, always doing something different, something new, something unique. Being that throwback in modern times. And I feel like people are finally getting ready for that. I've been presenting what I've been presenting for many, many years, but I think people are finally coming around to, they've seen the flips, they've seen the dives, they've seen the jumps, they've seen the risk taking, they've seen the oohs and ahs, and they're getting back to appreciating that rooted wrestling and grappling again, and the characters and the personas again. And I always said, you stay the path and it will come. And that was
the only two guys that I can recall when I started, and I'm about 5 years after you, that committed to your style of wrestling and became successful, you and Jonathan Gresham.
Jonathan Gresham.
If you really think about it, with that old school style of looking like a wrestler.
Yep.
Because when I started, everybody was the long tights, the cross patterns, very much the video game character look of wrestling that has become very common, overly common. Yep. The trunks and the boots, that's old school, man. I don't want to do that. And some guys would then try it, but then do the high spots, the highlight reels, and it wasn't matching. People don't realize that wrestling is a whole package. And speaking of whole packages, when do you realize, because I've seen your entrance over 10 years, right? And now on the independents, even your entrance is one of the best things in your act. When do you realize, even if you don't execute it, when do you realize it's got to be everything? It's got to be the wrestling, the look, the entrance, the promos, because you don't put it all together right away. There's a lot of raw talent, but when do you realize, let's talk the entrance, because it's a TV entrance, period. When do you realize, okay, because that was the last thing missing for a little while.
Right.
From the song to the walk, the saunter, when do you realize that's got to come into the
so those developmental years all are attached. There's no skips. There's no down year. There's no the graph doesn't go up and down for me, which is a blessing. It really has gone in that upward trajectory. So 2014, 15 was where I feel like I was starting to get that, like I previously asked. And then for this new question that you just posed, I would say to where I was really putting the entrance and everything together, I would say that's 2016 into 2017, which led to my first UK tour, which really was where I was like, okay, entrance is so critical in every facet. And I have this, now you're getting into uh, temples and you're getting into these cathedrals that you're wrestling in. You have this opportunity to look so great. You have to utilize it because you don't know when you'll be back here again. So I was talking to the people that were using the lights. There was a cathedral wrestling in, and I saw that he was able to manipulate the lights and change them into different colors through the spectrums of the rainbow. So of course I'm like, hey, can you get that in gold? And he's like, absolutely. So I used that as part of my entrance in the UK. Wrestling for LDN in 2017. So I would say once I started, it was really after the Crusade, which was in 2016, that Crusade run throughout the year. And then 2017, where I really started to get those opportunities as a singles wrestler again. That was where it became, okay, entrance. Because with the Crusade, the entrance became very important for me. Us having the mask, the presentation, everybody in the Crusade had their role and their position, and that was very important as well. So it looked like a chess game.
It was also tough. I feel that you all had these individual identities, and you become the group, but yet the identity was the Crusade, even as individuals after the fact. Let's talk Crusade because I have a special bond with most of the members. What made the Crusade for Change, albeit brief, so impactful in the Northeast, so impactful in the independents, and what do you think ultimately was the downfall?
I think the Crusade was ahead of its time. The Crusade saw things coming that, there was writing on the wall, I feel, with independence and with a lot of the momentum and the way that things were going. I saw that and I wanted to turn that into something. I wanted to bring attention to that. I always had the ability to kind of do that, to be aware, to be cognizant, and what lies ahead. I always ask myself what lies ahead. What are we building to? What are we doing? What are we looking to accomplish at the end of this? The Crusade came up in 2013. I wrestled Johnny Miyagi in one of the most infamous matches in Beyond Wrestling history.
Oh, yeah.
And after the match, I have my knee on his neck, and the camera's in my face, so I'm going to start talking. And I just mentioned the Crusade, going on a Crusade for Change, and that's where it all birthed, was in that promo I cut post-match that just happened because the camera was in my face. So then the planning happened, how do we get the members, and how we got into the Minutemen, and then we got into Gangone, and of course TJ, and the idea and spouting that out. It was something so unique. It was something so different. The message was very real. It was very authentic in terms of being originals. We were Beyond Wrestling originals. We were guys that were always there. We were at every show. The Minutemen were there at every show in tag team matches. Gangone was coming into his own, but we wanted to get him into something quick because we didn't want him to kind of toiling. TJ. So there was a mission statement. We all had a position. It wasn't just, 5 people, a 5-person team. It was, here's your leader, here's your giant, here's your hitman, and here's your tag team. It brought structure. It was organized. I think it was easy to book because you can just bring in 5 people. So you bring in a carload of people against us. It writes itself. So
it was almost a super group if you think about it.
Right. We wrestled people from all over. So we wrestled Team NYWC, House of Glory, Ohio is for Killers. We wrestled people from all different avenues. Sometimes it was schools, sometimes it was promotions. They were representing them coming to face us. C4 in Canada, so Alpha. So there was a lot of 5-on-5 and 4-on-4 situations, but that's where I was realizing, look, we're getting these big platforms. We need to make the most of these entrances, going back to that question that you asked. And that got into 2017, and then that UK run, and then I came back from the UK, and it was like, because I said once I travel outside the country, you can't come back the same.
Right.
You can't. And
Yeah.
people sometimes do that. They leave and they come back. Maybe they're hot for a month, and then it's gone. And for me, I said I have to ride that momentum and make sure I have the right things set up for when I come back. I had Mercedes Martinez within a week of coming back at BCW from my UK tour. So I was like, I was set to go with matches and positions and everything and places that I needed to be. And it was just a blessing. It really was.
It's funny you bring that up because it's true, and you can just kind of tell from the talent who takes it seriously. You, Vinny Pacifico, Ryan Clancy, when you've done any international tour, it just the mountain gets higher and higher, and I love that you put that out there. What during your training do you think you took to right away? Was it the bumping? Was it the chaining? Or was it a general learning curve for you?
Yeah, I would say, the chaining, of course, I was so enamored with the chaining.
And being a BWO, who's your formal trainer? Is it Richie? Is it Steve?
Richie.
Okay.
So Richie Rotten. And when I wanted to do chain, a lot of times I would do it with Dan Murdoch, who I came in with, Eric Corvus when he would come by, then Corvus Fear, or even Steve Off. Steve Off was like at the peak of his career at that point. He was doing extra work for the WWE here and there. He was in excellent condition, physically and mentally. Steve was doing good work. So we got to do some stuff as well. Eventually Nunzio came in 2010. So that's where I got to do something with him. But Preacher came in maybe within like half a year, between half a year and a year after I got there. So Preach loved to chain. So getting in there with Preacher was a great way to do that as well. So I definitely caught immediately to the grappling aesthetic and also to the persona and the character. That was the first thing. I was like, I have to have something to present. I have to have you have an entrance, you have an exit. You can't just think about the wrestling. I always knew that. So there was always character was something I had even before I had come into professional wrestling. With backyard days and stuff. So
yeah. Well, I can't imagine you not having character and charm. And it's funny you say that because you mentioned all that presentation stuff. You always are, obviously, especially when the red light is on, you're always big. Everything you do is heightened, from the walk to the body slam to everything. In its simplicity, everything you do is so effective. What do you think is the best match of your career? If anything else, the best match you've had in all the feds you've worked, because it gives us a working list, because I've called many, I've heard about many, I've seen many. I'm just curious to hear your take.
That's a tough question to answer, mainly because you always want your last to be your best.
Sure.
So, and you can't control every situation, of course, to make that the case, for various reasons. It's not just what you do in the ring, it's the story. All of these things are what contribute to having the best match. For me, I funny enough, and life is just hilarious like that. I was asked a similar question earlier today by another podcast to comment. I have to say myself and Jonathan Gresham that we had in December and Ashe. That just went perfectly in the sense of everything that I wanted to happen and everything that I was hoping for and expecting happened. And you can't go in with expectations because it's setting yourself up for failure. But
right.
When you're a professional, when you've done it long enough, you know how to hit your points. And we hit our points. Everything that we wanted to accomplish was accomplished. And it was Jonathan Gresham who, as you said, is on that category of someone who does that style and has consistently maintained who he was. Gresham hasn't changed the core of who he was. He's changed the shell, no pun intended.
And he hasn't compromised either.
Right. He has not compromised in any way. He has adapted. He has changed. He has gone with the times. He has rolled with the punches. The guy gets hit, and he just comes out the other side like, okay, hit me again. And I'm that way as well. So for us to have that match the way that we did, and for us to flow and the chemistry, I mean, anyone could just say they're one of the best technicians in the world. Anybody can say they're one of the best at this and one of the best at that. It's a common thing to say.
Yeah.
But for me to have created the resume that I've created, and for me to go in there with Jonathan Gresham and to not just be competent, but to be comparative with this man, to run parallel with this man, that is an accomplishment unto itself. We were both running the same speed, moving the same steps, and hitting the marks. And that man has been everywhere, traveled the world everywhere. That man has wrestled every type of opponent you could wrestle. He has won heavyweight championships across the globe, fully established. And for me to be able to do that with him, which is something I know I can do, for the world to be able to see that and to see that the way that they did.
But even so, I love the humility in this response, because at the beginning of your answer, you were openly saying that, yeah, I know I can, I know he can, and I have an idea we can, but there's no promises, because there's been many a match where, oh, this is going to be this, and it doesn't hit. But even so, you're like, zero expectations equals no heartbreak, and yet we delivered an earth-shattering match, and I commend you for being so humble about it, because in theory, you see Carter and Gresham, and you're like, this ain't gonna miss, Yeah,
you have to go in with that. You have to go in with, we have to nail this. You have to hit every mark, because I know what expectations are, and I know what I need to do. It's that simple. I knew I had to be there with Gresham, and I knew that I couldn't miss a beat. I couldn't miss one beat, because I'd remember that beat. Forget what anyone else thought. I'd remember it for the rest of my days if I missed a beat with Jonathan Gresham. So, or with anybody of that level or that caliber. So you have to have some humility in this game when it comes to skill and when it comes to your best match, your best perceived match, because my best match isn't just mine to say. It's not just about what I think is the best. It's about what someone watching, the viewer, the paying audience, what do they think my best match is? Because they're the ones that are paying for it. It's a different perspective.
Yes, but you also, and I know when I say this, you'll certainly understand, we don't have the luxury of, it's our own opinion and self-confidence more than our peers, because our peers are going to say, oh, that was so great, even if it was terrible, which never happens to you, but you get what I mean. We don't have that grandiose fan base of a TV wrestling, an AEW, even a TNA, where we're going to get that general feedback. We have the moment, and that's it. So I get what you're saying, but it's also that the idea of, in the moment, you had to know when the bell rung and it was over, like this was a home run.
Oh yeah, no. Listen, I have no shame or doubt in saying what I think my favorite, or what I prefer, or what I feel. The point that I'm making is, into the word best or favorite can be seen from so many different perspectives, right? From my perspective, from how I felt bell to bell, I'm going to go ahead and say that Jonathan Gresham match, because again, that was just, it felt like water, and not all of my matches are meant to be that way, because that's not the story of every match. So, not all of my matches are meant to be this technically sound display, back and forth and physicality. Not every opponent is best for that. And I have to adapt and adjust to my opponent. That's my thing. And that's something that I wish more people did. I wish I saw that more. It's not just a character beat. It's a thing that makes us better as performers altogether. I am very adaptive. I can see myself against a guy on a match card and say, immediately in my mind, I'm like, okay, I can see this looking good and that looking good. But whether I do something or not is based on the story we tell. All of that is based off of, what are they bringing to the table? What do we need to accomplish out of this? And maybe you don't get to do that thing you want to do. Maybe you don't get to run that thing that would look fantastic and people would be into, but it doesn't make sense for this particular beat. I wish more people understood that. I wish more people looked into that. But that's something I pride myself on, and I think that has contributed to my longevity is because I know to save something. I know, and that's also contributed to the fact that I'm not getting injured because I know to save something. I know to let something build, let that thing rise. You know, you don't have
with the exception of a select few of names, you're not embedded in these, which in your case you make a luxury. You're not embedded in these 3 to 4 month programs, so you get to tell this one unique cinematic experience in one match. You don't have to pace yourself to get to that 3-match series,
right.
Which I think you're the only one that has benefited from that, because you get this unique wheelhouse of opponents every title defense, and in that there's the promotional hype and then there's the bell, and you get to tell a totally different story. I just saw you, of course, with Vincent at Bree Combination Wrestling, and it was prize fighter versus richest prize. You know, everything you can do, I can do plus more. And then you came out the box that can't be good old fashioned wrestling and talent, and that was the story of the evening. It's low hanging fruit as a question, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, who have you not faced yet that it's like, come on, when's it going to happen? Because you were campaigning for George South for a while and got it. Yeah. And that was an experience and an education. Is there anybody else in that same vein that's like, when's that going to happen?
Yeah, that's and George South happening too. I've wanted that for like 7 years.
Yeah, so, you would post about that like twice a year.
Oh yeah, I mean, easily. That match, the things we did, the simplicity, sacred simplicity, really, and just that's a Bronx show. That's a Bronx crowd. You know, they want their wrestling.
Yeah,
but they really do. They want their hits and they want their wrestling. But we gave them something so traditional and so that living room, sitting and watching TV on your square box, and just kicking your feet back. That feeling is what we brought. And those are the types of, again, I love those different types of matches. So, again, having Lee Moriarty, that's a match I've wanted for a long time. So to have him days away at that is something I cannot wait for that bell to ring and just us to lock eyes and get in there and mix it up. I'm getting those matches that I've really been looking for. And I don't have dream matches. That's such an overused term, but I do have people but I do have people that I want to get in there and mix it up with. I do have people that I want to scrap with. And it's those technicians, because I feel like I'm generally put in a position, especially when I'm holding these top championships, I'm put in a position to help elevate an upcoming talent that needs to basically become a face of the brand. So I have to help build that crop of people. And I take so much pride in doing that, but you have to, there's a certain level of that, It's not like you're the champion and you're facing a name from TV every month. You're facing the up-and-coming student. You have to develop. I'm at the top developing these people, and that's the position I tend to get put in. So when I do get those matches to show more of myself, when I do get those opportunities to grapple with Jonathan Gresham or to wrestle Lee Moriarty, that helps add to the longevity of Darius Carter and my staying power, because you're not seeing me, you're seeing me in so many different positions. So I appreciate that. I think some people, they just want name. It's like, obviously I want more of that, but I take so much pride in someone saying, hey, Darius, hey, here's the ball. Just run with it. Here, I need this kid. He's young, a little wet behind the ears, but I need you to take him out there and, give him 12.
Here's a thought, because I realize it hasn't happened on a serious platform. It's no secret you've appeared at many places, especially this year. You got to return to GCW, so I guess you can have an idea of where we're going. Is something hardcore deathmatch, outlaw mud wrestling out of the question for the Allfather?
When it comes to Darius Carter and business,
I'm sure you've been asked. So
when it comes to Darius Carter and good business, nothing's out of the question. So it's all about story and what it's building to, what it all means, what do we get coming out of it. The people that I watched coming up, like Ric Flair, like eventually Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time, because I watched him from Hunter, which is, again, an inspiration in terms of how Hunter Hearst Helmsley became Triple H. That was evolutionary. He evolved into that character. So I loved that. Randy Orton as well, coming up. If we're talking about from that sliding bar of past to present, Nick Bockwinkel, of course. Those guys all had their time bleeding. They all had their time in an unsanctioned situation, in the rules are out the window situation, tables, weaponry. That's always been something that I felt was eventual for me. That's how the story develops. When you face that person that represents that side, that's the way it's going to go. I don't get put in those situations, so it doesn't happen. I've never denied it or I've never said no to it. It's just something that hasn't been presented in a way, really at all, because I really haven't been asked at all in terms of like in a serious way. Like, but I've been asked on a podcast, but not from a promoter that's actually trying to book it. So again, maybe I've done so well with my character and persona that people don't bother to touch that. But for me, I feel like that's something that's eventual. When you get into a heated feud with somebody and the intensity is there, look at, myself and Billy Dixon, for example. We've been feuding for over 4 years and it continues to evolve. And people continue to pay to see this. And it's getting to that point where it's like we've done the I Quit match. We've done no disqualification. Where does it go? And we're starting to get into territory that is like, okay, this is real. Okay. There's skin on the line here. And that helps answer that part of the question. It's all a part of growth.
It is. And I just feel like it's one of those things where, and it's crazy because recently a very famous WWE pundit said that it wasn't needed. But, seeing Ric Flair in scenarios that involve barbed wire and thumbtacks, it was new and fresh and exciting, but yet commonplace for wrestling. And I just feel like, not that you need to transition into that world, but perhaps dip your toes in it. I think it's a matter of time. And I thought it was very, very a fair question to ask. Speaking of which, let's get into it. You are the current Warriors of Wrestling champion. Is that correct?
Warriors of Wrestling champ, 5-time, more than anyone else in history, more days held than anyone in history. I've literally rewritten like history over there, and it's an honor because I came in 2014 and with the mission of I want to make history here. I want to do things that nobody's ever done. And fast forward to 2024, and I've literally done things that nobody's ever done in that company.
And despite the fact that we have talked about a who's who of people you've been in the ring with, it's subjective, but he's in the conversation. If TJ Marconi might be your greatest foil of all time, but is he still your friend?
The greatest foil. You know what? It's funny because TJ was there with me in the beginning, and that longevity of friendship always makes for the greatest type of rivalry. So, I mean, we're talking 2009, 2010. Let's say 2009. So we're talking about, again, almost a decade and a half of history. We've teamed together. We were the lifestyles of the rich and famous, which led to us separating, feuding, doing our own thing, coming back as the Crusade, separating. He did his thing. I did mine for many years. And then really recently, he's come back to where I'm at, and now this is what we're doing. So it's really Warriors of Wrestling. It's the only place. But he comes back to Warriors of Wrestling, which is where I've been since 2014. See, TJ has come and gone. So like he'll do sabbaticals. He'll do a few months at a time, and I guess we're going to get into that. But he'll come in, and then he left. I was always there. Again, the consistency that I'm talking about. I don't just mean that's month to month, Saturday to Saturday. I'm talking about literally. I haven't missed a day. I'm always there.
You're a staple there.
Staple. So it meant something it means something when you say you've held the top title more than anybody else. It means something because there was 16, 17 years of history there. There were people before me that helped set the place up for me to come in there. And I was able to do things that no other wrestler has done. Why? Because I'm trusted, because I show up for work, because I put out the quality, because I get the viewership. And that's all commitment. That's not just me sitting back and saying, oh, I'm great. This is me working all the time, every day.
Now,
promoting everything that I do.
Now, we talked promos, we talked microphones and presence, things like that. TJ Marconi made a statement on this podcast at the ethos of your feud, where he said that you are not a good live promo, and I heavily disagreed with that. I was offended. When you heard that, what is the reaction?
TJ's funny. It's what's funny. Like I really do think he's. Oh man, I love TJ as like a brother. I always will. TJ's his own worst enemy, man. TJ is stopping TJ from being what TJ could be, and he's been his worst enemy for a bit now, and it is what it is. I want the best for him, and I'll always be there to work with him, and to whenever we're working together, I'm always going to give him my best, and I want to see him elevate, but mentally, I don't know if he's ready for it. And that's just something he's got to overcome that, man. He's got to overcome himself. He's got to love the person he sees in the mirror. He's got to really be happy with that person. And he's got to take risks. He's got to be willing to travel outside the state. He's got to do those things that we were talking about when we were in the Crusade. I just feel like TJ hasn't gotten out of his own way. And, he's just kind of, like listening to what he was saying, it's just a lot of shots fired, and it's like he's got to look at himself. He's got to do a big introspective and say, who am I? What do I want out of wrestling? Do I want to be? And this isn't insulting anything. It's just the way that the situation is assessed for me. Is he needs to look and say, what do I want out of wrestling? Do I really want to be a top person? Do I want to be a big fish in a small pond? Do I want to just kind of run the South Jersey circuit and be the top guy there? Or do I want to go out to Florida, to California, to North Carolina? Do I want to be seen on that level? If you do, you have to put out the work. And I think TJ's been you're doing a lot of office work and splitting between the office and the ring. He's got to, I think if TJ wants to be a top wrestler, he needs to focus on the matches and delivering the quality and saying, oh, wow, did you see that TJ match? I got to go I need to see TJ match quality. This is the thing I've been saying lately is like, where are the matches? Whenever we talk about somebody being this big wrestler, or are they good? Or are they?
We're seeing the highlights.
We're seeing the highlights.
We're seeing the high spots.
Where are the matches? I don't want to see 3 minutes of the gift stuff. No, I want to see the matches. And that's the thing with TJ. It's like the conversation is never about his work. It's always about what's going on behind the scenes or what he's talking about or saying online. My advice to TJ is to focus on the ring, focus on the work, getting the quality out there so that you can leave the state, so that you can leave and get more exposure for yourself and then cut those promos out there. But for me, TJ talks bigger than he's performing. He talks bigger than he is. And that's why I was like, all right, he can say what he wants to say. I wish him the best. Like TJ cuts a good promo, and he cut these promos by being around me, because when he first started, he wasn't cutting promos. He was too shy to cut them. And I was cutting the promos for us. And he'll tell you himself if you ask him. Maybe not if the camera's on, but he'll ask you if you ask him. He'll tell you that being around me with the promos is what helped him get comfortable talking. He wasn't talking. And now he talks all the time. But for me, it's like, deliver those matches. Deliver the best matches. When you have AR Fox, make sure you're having the best possible match you can have with AR
Right.
Fox, being a 6'6" giant that you are. Make sure you're doing that. And I think that's sometimes his weak point. He kind of gets in his own head. He has too many ideas, and then the match doesn't always come off the way he wants it to. But then he's talking like he's this big star. But for me, TJ has to focus on this. He has to focus on delivering the results that match the voice. That's what I think he needs to do.
There was an era in pro wrestling that we love and adore where the steel cage was the ultimate in brutality and finality. Is this the end? Saturday?
I hope so. I really do, because TJ's best work has been with me, I feel. My best work isn't necessarily with TJ. As Warriors champion, I wanted to wrestle as many different people as possible. I wanted to wrestle everyone on the roster if I could, because I want everyone to have their chance at the champ. Are you ready to take the ball? If I'm not there, or if something happens, or say I do get picked up, or whatever the case may be, is someone there to pick up the ball? And I'd love to be that person to wrestle and test everybody and see if they're there. I've been wrestling TJ for a while at Warriors. It's kind of been wrestling him in different ways, and that's fine. But I think TJ needs to, again, be able to deliver those quality matches, and I want to see that happen without me being involved. I want to see him be able to go on and wrestle Mansoor, or wrestle, again, AR Fox, or wrestle other students, and be able to really deliver the quality that he should be delivering if he feels he's as good as he says he is.
Well, we're going to find out, because the ultimate test is not just going to be you at your highest game. It's going to be the biggest test of all, and that's a steel cage. It's professional wrestling, Warriors of Wrestling.
I'm going to push him. I'm pushing.
I know you are. The big cage.
You know that.
Big cage main event. Marconi and Darius. Now we want to talk real quick. Bree Combination Wrestling, where you've also made history. You're coming off of a massive win. When it comes to you and BCW and this history-making reign that you're going on, what is next as we look to the August show?
So what was the question one more time?
For BCW, you're coming off the heels of that big win. What is next as we look to the August show?
Oh, yeah. So first off, and again, that was my most recent match, was against Savage Gentleman just last weekend. So, and that was different too. Going after his ankle. He's a street fighter, MMA fighter.
A legitimate one too.
Yes, and I wanted to approach that differently, and I don't think we get that. We don't see that done. So, especially on an independent level. So that was a great, hard-hitting, intense type of match. And now, I see the landscape, a lot of new champions. We saw new tag team champions. AJ's stable, sliding from one weight to the other.
One way or the other.
With Stunning Law, right, with Emily J and Journey Burke. So, and then Jay Bougie dethroning Anthony Gangone, who's been talking a lot of smack. But I love Gangone, and I always want the best for him.
Who do you think is next on the BCW roster to challenge you? Is there anybody worthy, or do you think BCW is better off getting an outsider?
What's funny is I always say that's up to them to decide. I always say that they can set up tournaments. They can set up a round-robin tournament. They can set up battle royals. They can figure out a way to find me opposition. And I've always been interested in seeing that. I like seeing a promotion try to find something for me, because sometimes they can't, or sometimes they have a difficult time.
Oh, and yeah, I've seen it.
They are giving me everything they can give me within their budget, within timing, and that's why you have to be careful getting a championship, because once you have a championship, you got to stay there. But
yeah.
So I can take the picture with 7 championships, but that's 7 places that I have to commit to above all else. I have to prioritize them now. And when something comes up that shimmies one of those, I have a big issue. So you got to be careful. But it's BCW for me. I love when they bring outside talent, but I also want to see, again, who's being developed in-house. Gangone has been wanting a chance to prove like he's the top guy at BCW. We did have that Grand Dragon tournament finale, that tournament that I never cared to be in. But myself and Gangone had secretly one of the premier matches that year. And I say secretly because so many things happened, that the Grand Dragon tournament kind of got lost in that shuffle, I feel, in terms of some of the matches we got out of it. But me and Gangone, I would love to wrestle him one-on-one without having 2 matches prior. I would love to wrestle him in a match where we can focus the attention on ourselves. With his Dr. Sleep persona, I'm interested in how he evolves and changes himself. This one is a bit of I don't want to say a deviation because, again, it is a bit of an evolution of Gangone, but it is him also sliding a bit. So I'm interested in that. If he can, but he's got to step up. I'm not the champion issuing challenges. He just lost to Jay Bougie. So, you don't just lose to Jay Bougie and challenge the heavyweight champ. But I'd love to see Gangone step up. Jay Bougie is someone I know in the future I will be crossing paths with. That's inevitable.
Yeah. It's inevitable, yeah.
That's over the horizon. But we have way more to accomplish together or at the size of one another. Just being black excellence,
Yeah. What made you decide, let's transition out of ECWA. What made you decide to take a page out of the history book and defend the ECWA heavyweight title in your second Super 8 appearance?
Oh, that was a case of having to do better than I did before. That was a case
that was a battle within. That was a self-challenge.
That was a self-challenge. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's the type of person I am. I'm the most critical person of myself. There's nobody that could ever be more critical. So that's why I don't take offense when people try to come at you in a certain way or say something. I'm like, I've already thought something about myself. And it's not in a negative way. It's that I feel like I'm very fair with myself. I'm very self-assessing. Especially as you grow older or go through experiences and the experience that I went through, what I went through early on and the situations that I encountered that taught me these things. But I'm not somebody that has to learn a life lesson multiple times. I get it once and I said, okay, this is how you grow from it. This is how you learn from it. And again, it may take time to develop, but once it's there, it clicks. And this is just me, again, being at the best position I feel, the best version of me that I've ever been. I've never felt better. I've never moved better. I've never thought better. And that's just being like everywhere I wrestle is like a project. And I always look at what can come next, what can be the next thing, where do I stand? And when it comes to a place like BCW, it's about building, and it's about building that, and that's what I think we need to do more of at BCW is have more of those in-house talents. We have a lot of people coming from outside, and that's a great thing, but we need those talents like, again, the Emily J and the Journey Burks who did come up a bit through BCW where we got to see them have a payoff moment with the tag team championships. We need to have people stepping up to face me because you can always bring in an outside party to wrestle me, but I want to see who has the hunger to try and hold the ball, because I'll feel like I'm the hungriest guy in the room. And if there is somebody that I feel can match my hunger, I want to go bout for bout. I want to see what you're about. That only is going to make me better. That's only going to develop me. Too many people are threatened by that. I'm in awe of that. I love that. That makes me hungrier. When someone else wants that, do you think you want that more than me? Let's find out.
Let's find out.
I want to see that. That's what I want to see at Warriors. I want to see that at BCW. I want to see that at ECWA. ECWA, to enter that Super 8 again, everything was already on the line for me because I debuted in the Super 8 with ECWA in 2022. So if I lost in 2024, it was going to be a big blow no matter what. It was going to feel catastrophic no matter what. I could have gotten beat and still left with the title. And you can say, oh, well, guess what? You're still champion. But that bruise of going in as champion and not being able to make it through the Super 8, that would have been a lifelong bruise I would have carried with myself. So I said, well, why stop there? Because why leave it at that point? I might as well put the championship on the line because I'm about to make history here. If I do win that Super 8, I'm going to be the second person to ever do it. Since 1997, this tournament has existed, 28 installments of the tournament. There was nobody that has ever, and we're talking every single year, no years off. I knew that was my chance to make history, so I had to do it in the biggest way. It's just like you said, okay, I do things big, but that's what pro wrestling is supposed to be about, doing things big.
Right.
Larger than life. And I said, if I'm going to go into this 2022 Super 8 and I have a chance to make history, I might as well put all my cards on the table because if I get beat in the Super 8, I might as well surrender the championship to the person who beat me anyway because I'm not the best. That doesn't work for me. So
I like that. We've come to the program now where it's rapid fire questions, so answer as you may. My theme song was almost going to be blank.
Well, my theme song was No One in the Corner Has Swagger Like Mr. Carter, and it was Hop Up Out the Bed.
Oh, yeah. I
had Soldier Boy. Yeah, that's not actually answering your question because you're asking which one I almost had, but that one I had.
I remember that.
Yeah, I had that.
But I remember being like, well, it's only in there because his name is in the song. Yeah.
Well, Well, the lyrics too. I mean, hop about the bed, turn your swag on, take a look in the mirror, say what's up. Sure. Like you could see me doing those things. So it did match at the time. I was young at the time. I was going to college. It was a different time. And again, when we talk about Darius Carter being me turned all the way up, that's what that was. So when me getting into situations, I was getting into situations in college too, but I was also getting phenomenal grades and making lists. So it was like I was, I had those excuses for myself, and that was why I went through a lot of things that I went through when I was younger. But I learned, I adapted, and it fossilized me to this person that I am now because I've seen that. I've been a part of that. And now I know what's the most important thing, which is building places, building things up, foundations, being a guy that you say, if I'm starting a company up, I can trust that guy. I don't have to tell him much. He's committed to the bit. He's committed to the task at hand. I can let him run with it. If I need 3 promos from him, 4 promos from him after a show, this guy's not only going to stay there, but he's not questioning, complaining, happy to do it. If I need him there to do this and do that, he's hitting it. If I need him in a segment to open the show and then a segment in the middle of the show and then the main event match, he's there for everything. He hits his marks. That's what this is all about. This is show business. Yes, we're wrestling, but it's about so much more than just what you do in the ring. And I aim to exemplify that. Being there for the shots, being there for the interviews, being there for the podcast, being there for everything you need to be there for, because you're in the ring 8 to 10 minutes. That's a part of your job, and it's a very critical part of your job. But you better have the things around it lined up, and otherwise you get stuck in the gambit. You can't really move.
One wrestling move that you do very well, but you don't bust out very often.
There's a few things I don't bust out very often because it depends on the stage, the platform. I have a step up enziguri where I'm able to leap to. I have a great vertical jump.
Yes,
it's like
you do.
Thank you. I have like this really.
You do.
It's not a secret athleticism. It's just because again, when you see me,
no, but you don't appreciate it until you execute it.
Right. And I think it's one of those things where when you see me, it's like what we talked about earlier with, okay, you see the ring gear, you see the presentation, you know what to expect. And when you see Darius Carter, you expect that old school technical, style, that fluid style. But then, oh wow, here's a drop kick. Here's an enziguri. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't expect him to leap that way. So I'm actually able to leap above the top rope. So I have this enziguri where I'll run up with my left foot because you always use the left to post. I'll post off the rope and I'll come up and swing my foot around and kick a guy that's, maybe not standing on the top rope, but they're kneeling on the top rope, so I can catch you that way. So that's that's like I call my enziguri a touch of class. That was one of my first moves when I was training. Was the enziguri. I just had kicks. So I had drop kick. That was my first one, was the drop kick. And then my second was the enziguri. Step up enziguri was always a step up guy. You don't have to catch the foot. I just could jump, post off your chest.
I'll bring it to you.
And and I just had the ability to do it. So yeah, a touch of class. So that answers that question. That's I think my favorite move that you won't see me do it. You can pull up like 10 matches of me and I might not do it in any of those 10, but I might do it in the 11th,
Okay.
Depends.
Okay.
Depends on who I'm wrestling and where I'm at.
The one name that I think I can help elevate.
TJ Marconi. If he lets me, if he gets out of his own way.
It's no secret you have dabbled in intergender competition. The one female name you'd love to tussle with, or any gender that isn't male.
Mako Satomura. I mean,
you keep going back to that one. You keep going back to that one.
Mako Satomura is like, you have a match with her and you learn, you grow. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter where you've been. You wrestle her and you come out a better person. And that's the type of competition that I want. I want people that make you say, wow, I had to look inside myself. I expect Lee Moriarty to bring something different out. Because, again, I get so used to wrestling opponents of different types and different breeds. And then when I get in there with those technical wrestlers, there's so many things that you want to do, but you got to feel it when it happens. And I can't wait to be in there with someone who also goes by that mantra of feeling it. Because I love to feel it out there in terms of where are we going, where can we position ourselves. We know where to go. We know our distance between the ropes in the corner and the outside of the ring. It's about who's there, who's paying attention, and the connection we can make at that time. And I love wrestling. I call it in real time. I love wrestling in real time and feeling that out there. Of course, you have your points, which are connecting the threads, but those moments in between is where the real money is. That's where the real milk and cookies are.
Yeah.
So
the margin, the buildup,
absolutely
the setup that isn't the setup.
Right, exactly. That those story beats. And I remember going through this in theater class, of course, in high school. I want to say this was 8th grade, 9th grade. 9th grade. And we're talking about the just how the story goes. And how there's the beats, there's the start, and there's the exposition, and all those other things. A story is built the same way. It just is. There's ways to the story. You can tell one so many different ways, but you're following a path that is emotionally gratifying to the person. And everything I ever do is emotional. I can't wrestle a match that doesn't have emotion in it. It just doesn't work. You have to create that emotion. If it's not there going into it, right. If it's not there going into it, it has to be created.
Well, that's the thing too. And it's funny you say that because a guy's like, oh, I'm wrestling a guy just to wrestle him. There is no story. You are out there on an actual canvas that you could create whatever story you want. Work a body part, play a size game, be a piece of shit. something to invoke an emotion, you're on an actual canvas. You get to create art. If you have the tunnel vision to not see beyond that, or you're just mad because you're on the show but not in a prominent role, then I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna make sure you give me something better next time. But I don't bump. So what am I even talking about?
Well, no, but you're making the point. It's true because people will say, well, it's a cold match. And listen, sometimes you get delivered a cold match. You get delivered a cold sandwich. This is what you have to work with today. But it's what do you make out of it? You know what I mean? Like, again, my match with Savage Gentleman was announced 6 days before the show. So I have 6 days to promote this match for what is perceived to be our premier event of the year, right? Because people are asking me who my opponent is. I have to wait until, of course, it's put out.
And you're going to be in the main event to boot.
So we have all these other things. Like, again, you had Gango and Bougie, which has been going on for well over a year. That had a ton of story and build to it. You had this story with AJ Pan and the Pancore Agency and those two sides, which has been building as well. So, again, myself and Victor Benjamin was a very fresh match. I don't want to say cold, but it was just because it's not that there was nothing there.
I don't think it was cold. I think it comes across as such from circumstance, from being six days away. But, yeah, I agree with you. The cold
is circumstantially warm.
Yeah. The one title that you haven't collected yet, but you will.
What is the one title that I want?
Yeah.
The WWE Championship. No. Let's on the indie level. I kind of wanted to throw a joke out there and say the GCW Championship, but I kind of want to. But I don't know. That is GCW was so situational with me, so it's like, I love doing the For the Culture. If there was a For the Culture Championship, that's great. So I guess that would bring us to the Pan-African World Diaspora Championship, which is held by Shug D. That championship means everything to me, meant everything to me. It's being kept distant from me, and it is what it is. But
why do you think that is?
Because of I am such a bold person.
That's the word.
And bold is not the easiest decision. It is not the easiest choice.
No.
And it is not the first way you're going to go if you're trying to think of if you have a certain perception of longevity. But I think the bold option is always the most intriguing one, especially when all the pieces are in play.
Sure.
But hey, I'm not the one running it. At this point, when Trish had it, when we had that triple threat match, I felt like that was the height, and I felt like that was the moment. And when Shug ended up having it and and beating Trish, it was like, all right, it almost felt like the thing got in a ship and just sailed, and it's like I'm watching it, and I'm just like, so what do I do? Do I go to that unit? It's like it's you did everything right. You got up early. You got there ahead of schedule. You were there before takeoff. You knew the controls. You were ready, and somehow they made sure that rocket took off without you. And it's just like, At some point, you realize it wasn't ever in the design for you. Or at least it wasn't to that point. I never say never in terms of your ability to get something. Sure. I can always be in the position. I could be in the same room with Shug, and it can happen. So I'm not like a never say never. I'm not saying it cast away, but I'm saying I do feel like I saw that rocket take off. And again, that rocket can come back. That rocket's not gone. But I have other aspirations. There are other things coming up that may sway me from needing to pursue that title. That is the one championship that I don't have that I wish I did, but circumstances get set a certain way, things happen, and again, I'm bold. So me with the Pan African World Diaspora Championship, I will say things and make decisions that maybe certain promotions, like a Fight Club, may be afraid to stand on. But I'm their champion, So you have to show that support or stand on what I'm standing on. And
Yeah.
I may say things that are a little too sharp for others to grab right now. It is what it is. But it's like the Crusade. What I was saying at that point was sharp, but people were very, very interested and very intrigued. I still see people saying they missed the Crusade, and the messages come up.
I hear it all the time, sure.
So what we were doing was ahead of the curve because we were talking about being originals and holding the game down and how the game was trying to pass us by when we're the reason the game is being played.
Yeah. So. What do you feel is in fact your defining characteristic?
Because you're making me say one thing. My defining characteristic is commitment. I am committed to every aspect of Darius Carter, of what I do, of my presentation, the coat, the trunks, the fact that I stay true to that. I don't wear 17 different pieces of gear. I don't come here presenting something that seems fallible. I feel like I'm presenting something that's very real, something that's very easy to touch, very easy to feel, and very easy to be hurt by. So I think it does make people sensitive, but Darius Carter is really capitalism at its finest. And I love that.
I like that term.
Yeah, I loved Wall Street coming up, not Wolf of Wall Street with
Gordon Gekko, the real Wall Street
with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen. That movie just enamored me in so many ways, in Gordon Gekko and the way that he moved and the things that he had. And I always loved art coming up. I always loved. I was always intrigued by nature, by all of these things, and just by abundance. So to see people in positions like that always intrigued me, and I think that helped set up the mindset for Carter, who was just this prosperous person. In and out. It's not just a money thing. It's a presentation. It's a feeling. Carter, you could tell Carter is a happy person, and although he to make the facial expressions, I mean, this man feels like he's the height of everything, and then he goes in there and he wins, and it's like, well, and it's that feeling, and people, that is
it's real. It's like any classic villain. Eventually, you root for him.
It's one of those things where, because you need someone to oppose him, you need someone to stand against him, and that's part of my job. Ironically, is to develop the person and the people that can stand against me, so that we can make history, so that we can so you can be the Andre Hogan, the Rock Austin, the Triple H Rock, whatever it is, the Flair Dusty. You want to have those rivalries on your level, and I love when wrestlers are asked, other wrestlers are asked, who is a rival of yours, and then I get tagged, Darius Carter. Vinny Pacifico just said it, and it's like, because we don't just wrestle. He's wrestled certain people multiple times, but every time him and I wrestle, there's a story. There's a development, and that's how you have a rivalry. It's not just because you've wrestled someone 5 or 6 times in a row. It's because you have an ongoing thread that
it's the emotion and chemistry going into enduring.
That's it. Yeah. And I always said to myself, it's funny, and I look at it like, the No Mercy and all those video games, but No Mercy was really the first game where you saw this, and they had a rivalry. They had like slots for rivals and allies, And I was always go down into the moveset and I'd look at every little thing. Just the type of person I am. And I would see, Triple H's enemies, The Rock, Austin, Undertaker, Kane. Every
From that
slot
gauge
was
meter,
filled.
yeah.
Every slot was filled. And I always wanted to be someone who's had all those slots filled. I have everywhere I go, I have enemies throughout the list. And I'll have some allies too, but some enemies so that there's always something for me to do. There's always a position to put me in. I feel like as the performer, my part of my responsibility is to make myself as easily bookable as possible. And the way to do that is to, again, as going back to the start of the conversation, giving you something where you know exactly what you're going to get.
Right.
And I think the places that book me continually know that. The places that haven't booked me yet, there's a lot of, there could be trepidation or, will he go too far? Will he do this or that? Based on where they're at and who's whispering in their ear on that day,
I tell you one thing: if you're not using Darius Carter, you'd be a fool to not want to do so. I mean, there is absolutely nothing the man can't do. And I think here it is. Uncle Magic, Andrew Morgan makes a point. This young man should have been signed.
Magic. That's another person that trained me too was Magic, man.
On Shaolin.
He was there early. And so it was Richie and it was Magic, and then Preacher came in. But Richie was there all the time. Magic would come through. But Magic helped give me an outlet, to where BWO sometimes felt rigid and felt like I had to do things a certain way. And I did. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the more I look back on it, trust me, it's a good thing. But it was a lot more rigid there. And Magic was someone who would help, allow me to get some of that artistic, freedom out
Creative
there.
freedom.
Yeah, so EGW and doing those areas, Tamaqua and Lansford, I'll never forget. So Magic was there to help develop me. And again, I'm a guy that never forgets. So a lot of people are forgetful around these parts, but I'm not one of them. So
I like that, and you're extremely loyal. Seeing your humility tonight has been refreshing and honestly inspiring. And it's no secret, I say it to you every time I see you. I am so happy and proud to call you a friend. I am so happy and proud for all of your success and hard work. And again, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I really want the best for you. I'm a little torn for Saturday because I got two very good friends going inside the Containment of Brutality of Finality, and that's at Warriors Wrestling this coming Saturday. It's going to be defending champion, the All-Father, Wrestling Surprise, Darius Carter, taking on Public Enemy #1, and especially on our timelines, TJ Marconi inside of the Steel Cage for Warriors. Darius, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you on socials?
Thank you for having me. End of the line, TJ, sorry. Social media, you can find me Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter /X, all Mr. Darius Carter. That's MR Darius Carter. You can see it spelled below. I hope that doesn't take you too long to type out. I hope that doesn't make your brain explode with difficulty. Very easy to find. Mr. Darius Carter, posting all the time. Our walking business. It is what it is.
Walking business and standing on business inside of the 15-foot-high steel cage this Saturday for Warriors the Wrestling. Darius Carter, TJ Marconi, the Warriors heavyweight title is on the line. The following conversation was scheduled for one fall. We'll see you next time, fans.